Hello there, guys. This is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, coming to you with my December wrap-up and January TBR. Oh my gosh. Wow. Last wrap-up in TBR of 2024. So welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I do these mostly unedited videos. I will include links and timestamps down below for each book that I'm talking to since I'm not editing it. So if I'm talking about a book that interests you, check it out down below. These videos do get long, so feel free to turn on the 2x speed. It won't distort my voice or anything. It'll just be me talking a little bit faster, which is fine because I don't talk super fast. Our first book that I finished in December, and by the way, this will include a We Love Jenny 2025 TBR at the end. We are going to host kind of a stripped down version of We Love Jenny with 2 live streams, a TBR stream and a wrap-up stream, and then also reading sprints in the middle, so 3 live streams total. The first book that I have on my list, this isn't actually in any sort of order, it's just, I'm writing it down. The Bakery Dragon by Devin Elle Kurtz. I'll try and get it to... There we go. This is a picture book, and it's about just what it sounds like. It's about a dragon who is not really good at stealing gold from the villagers, like all his friend dragons are. And so he actually gets caught in a bakery, I think during a storm it was, and he ends up discovering his new calling. He ends up becoming a bakery dragon. Yeah, the illustrations were super cute. I really enjoyed this. Anything with dragons, I'm kind of like in, you know? And I forgot to mention, today is Friday, December 20th, so this is like a really late... Normally I do it vlog style where I wrap up multiple times throughout the month, but I did not have time in December. We just got back from Disneyland. So anyways, this was really fun. I would recommend it for kids and parents and people who like illustrations. I've been really enjoying illustrated works lately. I think I'm just in a phase where I enjoy drawing to relax at night. I'll listen to an audiobook and I'll draw, especially cartoon things lately. I've been really loving that because it's fun to color them. So, okay. Next, we have another picture book. This is Christmas time. Christmas at Hogwarts. So basically, the text of this book is from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and the illustrations are all new. This is not by the same person who did the illustrated Harry Potter books, but they're super cute. Very sweet illustrations, I would say. I'll see if I can find a good one to show you. So the ones in the actual illustrated editions of the Harry Potter books are really, some of them are really intense. Like the further you get into the series, it's like the tone, it shifts along with the books. But since this is the first book, it's just like pure sweet. I mean, it looks like maybe like Animal Crossing. That's kind of what I thought of when I saw them, is like Animal Crossing. But I've never actually played Animal Crossing, so I can't tell you for sure. But it's just like really cute, sort of animated Harry Potter young characters. Everybody just looks sweet and fun, including like McGonagall and even Snape. I mean, he's not really like looking like he's having a good time exactly, because Snape never looks like that. But yeah, totally enjoyable. The thing that's a little strange about it is, since it's just the first book, I'm trying to figure out the best way to be sitting here, since it's really just text from the first book, it ends in a weird place. It's like, it ends with Harry Potter trying out his invisibility cloak. And that's like the ending. It's like a really strange place to end the story. So it's not a self-contained new story. It's literally just text from the first book. So yeah, that was really strange. I mean, there was like moments when they could have ended it and it would have been like, oh yeah, this is a good place to end the cozy picture book version of Harry Potter. But she blew right past it. So yeah, I don't really understand the decision making for the story part of this. It was like questionable, but you know, I still enjoyed it. So whatever. I definitely would rate The Bakery Dragon higher as far as picture books go. Okay, next let's do, yes, The Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. I've heard several people in American politics on the right and the left recommending this, but I think particularly, I'm trying to think, maybe more from the left, but people who might be becoming right. I don't know. I feel like this is the authors came out and said we're actually on the left, but we're really concerned about the mental health of college students. It seems like college students today are like less emotionally mature than college students were in previous generations, because they have helicopter parents who kept them home. They have less social experience because they're on their phones all the time. It's like the first generation that grew up with smartphones has higher anxiety, and they're like really sensitive emotionally. And so how good intentions and bad ideas are setting up a generation for failure. That's kind of, they're basically kind of talking about why Gen Z, I think it starts with Gen Z because it's the generation after millennials, but I definitely see this. I'm like the tail end of the millennial generation, and I definitely see it with my generation because we were starting to have social media. Not necessarily on our phones when I was a teenager, but like MySpace was a thing when I was a teenager, and it definitely impacted my mental health. So I think tail end of the millennials, but like it was like in 2008. I want to say 2008 when those kids were in high school and middle school. That's when they're starting to see these problems crop up. And they cite a lot of news stories to kind of represent why they feel this way. Like there was one college in Oregon that they talked extensively about where basically the students were punishing the teachers for like perceived microaggressions. And it actually got physically dangerous for the professor. He had to like go off, and it wasn't like he's liberal, you know? It's like liberal students kind of eating other liberal students alive is the problem. And as liberals, they were very concerned to see this. And he's like, and conservative students, as like kind of a backlash to this, have done the same thing, where both sides will like shout down speakers, and they won't allow speakers to come to colleges and talk. And they kind of just talk about how basically students have been taught the opposite of CBT. So CBT, what does it stand for exactly? It's a way of thinking. It's a way of training your brain to think around anxiety and depression. It deals with cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what it is. It's like giving you strategies and noting points in your own thinking that are cognitive distortions. There was another book I wrapped up last month, and it's quoted extensively in here as well. Like there's a whole list of cognitive distortions in here that are quoted from the other book on anxiety by Robert Leahy, The Anxiety Cure. So I really enjoyed this. I thought it was excellent. They basically say we all could use a little CBT in our lives to figure out where in our thinking we are deriving our anxiety and depression, and where it's stopping us from being like realistic with our thinking. So like, for example, these are some of the categories of distorted thinking or cognitive distortions that they talk about. Mind reading. You assume that you know what people think without having sufficient evidence of their thoughts. For example, he thinks I'm a loser. Catastrophizing. You believe that what has happened or will happen will be so awful and unbearable that you won't be able to stand it. For example, it would be terrible if I failed. And there's a whole bunch of other ones, like overgeneralizing, shoulds, fortune telling, predicting the future negatively. Like, I just was like, oh my gosh, this is really helpful for me as somebody with anxiety. I've been in CBT therapy for like, I don't know, 2 years now. And I'm just starting to cut back like to like once a month, because I feel like I'm getting a handle on kind of my own cognitive thinking distortions. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. I think I have some quotes here. Let me pull them up. So one of the quotes that like kind of exemplifies their point of view is that teaching students to use the least generous interpretations possible of something they're hearing, somebody who's talking, is likely to render precisely the feelings of marginalization and oppression that almost everyone wants to eliminate. You know, nobody wants other people to feel marginalized or oppressed. But if you are validating a student who is thinking the absolute worst case scenario when somebody is talking, you know, they're assuming, they're making like some of these cognitive distortions when you're like assuming you understand their point of view, when you really don't, you know, that can cause those feelings to get worse, and it can cause anxiety to get worse. And that's why we see those crazy videos of people like screaming at each other. And, you know, it's like nobody's hearing each other in those situations. It reminds me a lot of American Chopper. You know, it was like, oh, you guys are just, you're not talking to each other. You know, you're just talking at each other. So yeah, that was one great quote. And another thing he said was that, another thing they agreed on was that universities are not meant to be institutions that instigate social change. They're meant to be institutions that perpetuate knowledge and increase knowledge for the general public. It's all about seeking truth. And he's like, that is something that's getting lost, even though it's in a lot of college, like, this is what our college is about. You know, if you look at their mission statements and like, you know, their marketing materials and stuff like that, truth is usually in them. Truth, factual things, etc. is what they're seeking. But what's happening is that students and teachers are basically really focusing on how can we create social progress according to one perspective. In the past, there was not exactly a balance of thinkers from the left and right in colleges, but there was enough conservative thinkers on colleges to kind of check the biases of the left, because no side has a monopoly on truth. Both sides have truth to them. And so it's important that they're having a conversation, that, you know, if a left kind of research team is publishing research, then the right can kind of check it and be like, peer review, you know. So basically the number of professors who are right-leaning has dropped like catastrophically low levels. And so it's like everybody is pretty much left almost now, as far as professors go. And so now we're seeing a lot more of the bias of the left in research institutions. And there's blind spots to that. You really need that secondary view to be like, actually, you know, what Thomas Sowell says, and, you know, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Sowell. So anyways, yeah. Yeah. What else? I feel like there was more, but that's all I have written down. So anyways, it was definitely a great book. I would highly recommend it. There's my review of it. Okay, next we have Lady Night. This is Tamora Pierce's Protector of the Small series. And as you could probably tell, Kelladry of Mindolin, the main character, is a Lady Knight in this book. And that's her goal for the first 3 books, is to become a knight. So, spoiler, she becomes a knight. But not without setbacks. But anyways, eventually she makes it. And what a great book. You can tell the exact moment when it became too exciting for me to read at night anymore. Same thing happened with Squire. I think Squire is my favorite book, but in this case, Kell is running a refugee camp. And what she wants to do is out fighting. You know, she's like, I'm a warrior. I trained for battle, but now I'm babysitting refugees. That's like her attitude at first, but she really comes to care for these people in the refugee camp. Their kingdom of Tortal has been, let me like There we go. Her kingdom of Tortal is now at war, and this is kind of, while everybody else is fighting, they are trying to basically defend. They're not going out and fighting. So, but it's really interesting. I think what's really cool about her writing, she's really good at writing battles, battle tactics, battle scenes in an understandable way for somebody who, like, I don't know anything about like military history at all, but I can understand her battle scenes really well. And there's some really interesting things happening, like with some of the immortal creatures that are in it. There's a little bit of like a steampunk element to the enemy warfare in this one. It's super creepy. It's really dark at times. It's still in the middle grade section at the library, which is, I read these when I was 9. So it's still, I think, suitable for kids, but it's definitely darker. This one gets pretty dark. The end of Squire gets pretty dark because she finally goes to battle for the first time, like real battle. She's not just jousting, which I love the jousting scenes. She goes into such detail about how jousting works, and I can just picture it so well. And I just love Tamora Pierce's early Tortal series. So in this one, there's a lot of really dark battle scenes, I would say. So yeah, really good though. I really loved this. I loved rereading it. I forgot I was gonna check and see if there was any quotes to share, but I'm not sure that I have any for this one. Okay. If I had gone over it ahead of time, I would totally have quotes for you, but I didn't do that. So next, another picture book. Like you said, I'm really enjoying these. I'm running across a lot through my job, and so I just order them and then I read them. So Dragons Love Tacos. This one finally I read. I've been wanting to read this for forever, and I don't know why I just didn't until just now. So the art is super cute. I thought it was like a well put together picture book, I guess. But it's really like the art. Like you see the dragon's stick arms. I thought they were really cute. And of course, I also love tacos. So all about the vibes. I've really discovered sort of recently how much vibes are like what I'm here for as far as stories. So I enjoyed the vibes. And speaking of another book where I enjoyed the vibes, The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. This might be my favorite young adult fantasy or young adult book, period. I'll hold it up a little closer for you. This is a standalone fantasy. It's a historical fantasy by Maggie Stiefvater. There's a lot of details left out. She does describe the legend in this book that the fantasy is based on, and you can kind of guess the year of the book based on the vehicles. But yeah, it's set on a kind of like Scottish feeling island where these water horses that are carnivorous come out of the ocean and they show up on these beaches around the island. And the people who live there have, this whole tradition of racing the horses every year. They call them the Scorpio Races, and they happen every November. So the horses start coming out of the sea around this time of year, and all of the people who live on Thisbe capture their own horses, and then they race them for money, and it's like basically rags to riches. You can earn a lot of money if you win the races. So basically, what happens is there are two people who are racing for really big stakes, and they're both teenagers in this book. And one of them is Puck Connolly. She's a teenage girl who is racing basically to make a spectacle of herself so that her brother will not leave the island for the mainland right now. And she ends up having more reasons as she goes on. But she's a racer. She just loves racing her pony, her island pony. And then the other main character, and we're seeing from both of their point of views, from their perspectives. I think it's from first person. Yeah. And the other person is Sean Kendrick, and he is a man of few words who has some trauma in his past. And basically he's won the races, I think 4 times by this point where we are starting the story, when they're both like 17 or something. And he's gonna race again, but this time for really big stakes. He's gonna race to win his horse that he's been riding for his employer this whole time, because his employer was getting the money because he was racing for his employer. So he's basically racing for the ownership of his race horse, who is a Kapelishka, which is one of the water horses. And that's his motivation. And he and Puck Connolly have some run-ins because Puck is not following Sean's idea of smart rules, following the rules. You know, she's technically following the rules, but like, they're just guidelines anyways, right? No. So yeah, I really just, the food writing is so good. I just think, I would say some people might call her purple prosy, I guess. But this is my favorite book by Maggie Stiefvater, and I've read several others, but it really made me want to go and like read some of her newer stuff that I haven't read. There's one like All the Saints or something, All the Crooked Saints. I need to check that one out. I stopped with the Raven Boys after a while. I really liked the first one a lot, but then I just felt like it went off the rails. So this one though is like a perfect book for me. Oh, it's so perfect. I understand some of the criticisms of it, but I don't care and I love it. I love it unreservedly, and I would highly recommend it. It's really funny. I think the characterization is great. The actual writing is beautiful. The setting is its own character. The plot is like, I was so invested in the plot. And also she created a recipe for what's called November cakes, which is one of the foods that she writes about in this book. It's like a caramelized cake. And it's so good. She actually made the recipe and put it online so that you can make it. And so I pretty much make it. I used to make it every year. Honestly, I don't as much now because my stomach is just like, stomach is not great all the time for November cakes type stuff. But anyways, I really wanted to make this and I just didn't get a chance yet. So maybe I'll make November cakes in January. We'll see. Anyways, I loved this. I loved rereading it. I was so glad that Tiffany read it. It was a Patreon vlog that she did. She reads, I think, 1 book per month that her patrons recommend to her. And another subscriber of hers also is like, this is like my favorite book. I reread it every year. So she really wanted to read it and she loved it. I think it was like 4 out of 5 stars. So that was awesome. I'm so glad that she loved it. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, Cranford. How much time do we have left? Okay, yeah, we're good. Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. So this was kind of sad. I've actually DNF'd this before. Let's see, how far did I get before? I've started it 3 times before finally managing to breach 20%. And I think that's because there's a lot of characters and it wasn't easy to keep track of them all on audio. And I've listened to several of her books, like entirely on audio. Wives and Daughters, entirely on audio. And I wanted to do that with this, but I couldn't. So I had to like settle down, pick it back up and reread it with my eyes. And honestly, every time a character was introduced, they would just die. And I finally got tired of that. I was literally crying and not able to sleep. So it was just a little too sad for me. It felt kind of vignette-y. I wanted to say they're short stories, but like everybody else was like, no, that's not right. They're not short stories. So maybe short story isn't the right way, but to me, they really felt like maybe vignettes would be a better way to say it. I didn't really enjoy it. I don't really like that. I prefer a through narrative where we're following the same characters, because yeah, we'd find a new character that we're following and then they would die, and then a new character we're following and then they would die, and it was like, okay, I'm done. I got like 40% through it. It's not very long. I didn't want to finish it, but all that to say, her characterization is just so good. She can characterize people in just a few lines, and it's so funny. And that alone, I think, is enough for a lot of people to just be like, oh, I'm gonna read it and love it. And I get that because it's funny. Like, she is a funny writer, and I really did enjoy on like a writing level, but like on a story level, I had problems with it. But I've heard that people who love Cranford often don't love the rest of her works, and vice versa. And I guess that's me, because I love everything else I've ever read by her. And then I DNF'd this twice. Yeah, so unfortunately it was a DNF for me. I really wanted this to be my classic for the month, because I haven't finished any classics in a minute. But yeah, that was for Tiffany's Patreon. It was a vote. We all voted for it. I definitely voted for it. I really wanted to love it, but I didn't. Okay, that's it for now, and I will come back to you with some more updates later in the month. Probably just one more time. Next weekend. Bye! Hey guys, it is now December 26th, which is a Thursday in the evening. We had Christmas with my parents today, and it was wonderful, and I got so many cool gifts from people, and I was really excited to give certain gifts. It was just like a really cozy, happy season, and I was able to have a really yummy dinner today for the first time this week. I had a flare earlier in the week and I couldn't, so it was just felt really good to be able to have like a cookie with dinner and to be able to have garlic bread, and just it was nice. It was a really nice time. So here I am with my reading wrap up, and I just wanted to talk about a few things that I've just been really loving recently. So without further ado, let's wrap up the rest of December and share my January 2025 TBR, which includes my We Love Jenny TBR. And there's going to be a few other things that I finished that I'm really excited to talk about, but I want to save that for my favorites of 2025, and then I'll wrap them up in January in my wrap up video. But I need to get this out, otherwise I won't be able to get my favorites of 2024 out in a reasonable time. So we're doing this video a little bit early. This should be the last update for the month. So I wanted to talk about this really nice, like super cozy, gigantic sweater hood with a hood thing. It's like really, really big that Tiffany got me, and looking at it you wouldn't think that's the most cozy thing in my house, but it is. It's the most cozy thing in my house, and that was a gift from Tiffany. So huge thanks to Tiffany. I've just been living in it in this house in wintertime. It's actually not that cold in here right now. It rained today, so it wasn't nearly as cold, but and since Kevin's been home, we've been keeping the heat on. But usually when I'm just home alone, I don't even turn the heat on until Kevin gets home, so it gets pretty cold in here. But that's because we have like $800 natural gas prices right now for winter, and we've had that for a couple years, and it's just awful. And that's with me not using the heat during the day. We only use it usually at night and we still get like $800, and it's not like every month, but it's like every month and a half, and it's just a lot. It's a lot of money. So I'm trying to stay warm other ways, and Tiffany knew that, and so she sent me this sweater, and it's made with this this line. It's like material that keeps the heat in. It traps the heat in, and it keeps you so warm. So highly recommend that. If you want the brand, if I remember, I will list it in the description. And then another thing that I've been loving this year are Christmas cards, and I've been putting them in my prayer journal whenever I get them. And this isn't all of them, but I got one from my friend in Korea, so I'm still deciphering this one. But yeah, that's just been so cozy, and I finally did actually send out some Christmas cards this year, and I normally don't. I only got it out to a couple people, really only a couple people this year. So, but I got out a couple. I try to send them to people either who send them to me, or that I really want to send them season's greetings, and I haven't done it in some other way, so I really just enjoyed getting to that finally this year. It felt good to be able to do that finally this year. And then the other thing that I've been really obsessed with is Rose from Blackpink came out with a 12-song album. I haven't heard all of the songs yet because I haven't been working as much with Kev home this month. We went to Disneyland for Christmas, and I vlogged it, and I don't know when I'll get the vlog up because I just don't have a lot of editing time these days. But anyways, she came out with a song about 2 months ago called Apate, which was with Bruno Mars. You might have heard this one. It was humongous. Like, it's got what does it have, like 600, 800 million views. Like, it was incredibly popular. 693 million views. So, but that song's fine, you know, but it's like a poppy bop, you know. But some of the other songs that she came out with are so like emotionally raw and honest. And she is the main vocalist of Blackpink. And what that means is usually in K-pop groups, there are members who are talented with different things. Sometimes there's a visual who is like known to be like particularly attractive. And then there's sometimes like members who are particularly known for their performances live. Then there's usually members who are particularly good at dancing, or they have a really big personality and they come across well in interviews. Well, Rosé, she has the voice of Blackpink, and like the other girls are lovely, they have lovely voices, but Rosé's voice is like so soulful. And she does write her own music, which makes her really special in K-pop, because a lot of times rappers write their own music in K-pop. So a lot of times the raps are self-written, but most of the lyrics are actually written by other people. And a lot of times the music is written by other people. So Rosé is really special. And so she has a couple songs that I've just been playing on repeat. One of them is Number One Girl, which is, she's in all the pictures of her on this new album. Her shirt says Number One Girl, and it's like this really uncomfortably honest song where she's like, it's like what she wants to be told, to be feeling special. She wants to be told she's someone's number one girl, and she's like writing it to all the people out there who want to be someone's number one girl. And it's like really hard to listen to in a way, but it's really beautiful. And her live performance of it is just wow. On Youngji's Rainbow, I've been really loving, there's a Korean drinking show called, is it just called Youngji? I don't know. I usually just search for it by saying Youngji. Let me see what the actual show is called. Anyway, Youngji has a new show called Rainbow, where she has artists come on and perform and she talks to them. But I really love her YouTube channel. It's called Nothing Much Prepared in English, or Not Much Prepared. So Charingon take, okay, I'm just gonna have to like just, if you search Youngji, like young as in I am a young girl, and then Ji, you'll be able to find her channel. But anyway, she has English subs, like you can read it. But I love listening to her videos because she interviews really fun and famous people, and she really has a way of making everything funny. Like the whole show, you'll just laugh your way through her shows. They're really funny. My friend Jojo and I, who both love K-drama, we just love watching Youngji. And she interviews all these really famous people, and she was not famous. She was like catapulted to stardom with this YouTube channel that she has. And she doesn't like wear makeup. She's usually wearing just like whatever, like funny frumpy clothes, and she's like, I don't even care. It's all based on her personality. But the way she speaks Korean, it's like she speaks with so much animation, and there's so much life to it. So it's really fun if you're actually studying Korean to listen to Youngji, because you will remember things that she says. You'll remember the words that she says because of how she says them. And it's like fun to listen to somebody who's really witty in the language that you're learning, because you feel like you're picking up. It just feels so native to listen to, and it's easy to follow. It's very conversational. So I really love her channel. That's another thing I've been just loving. And I love watching her videos when I can't really focus on reading, but I want to spend some time doing some Korean. I just started reading Hangang's Human Acts in Korean, but it's taking me a really long time. So when I'm not doing that, I will watch, I'll watch or rewatch. I've rewatched Youngji's interviews so many times, which is why she gets millions of views. Probably everybody probably rewatches them, but it's just really fun. So I really love her channel. And anyway, she interviewed Rose, and there was an amazing live performance of Rose singing Number One Girl on Youngji's Rainbow, which is like the performance-based show that's not set in her apartment over glasses of soju, and it's just I highly recommend checking out Rose's music. And also Toxic Till the End is like, that's like my favorite song on the album. It's so catchy and also really sad, but like super relatable. Like she talks about what it's like being in a relationship with like a really manipulative person, basically. Yeah, it's super sad and catchy. So anyways, that's some of the stuff I've been obsessed with lately. I just wanted to throw that in there because I don't actually do like a favorites video very often of like other stuff that's going on in my lives, but that's what I just wanted to add a little cozy chat in there because it's Christmassy and I feel like it. Okay. So next, let's actually talk about the books. So first we have All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater, which I will pull up here. I thought I had it up here, but I guess not. So I'll pull it up here. Anyways, so I picked this up because I read the Scorpio Races. It was either earlier this month that I finished it or it was last month. So I wrapped it up though before talking to you guys about this. And I said when I wrapped up the Scorpio Races, I am going to read something else by Maggie Stiefvater that I haven't read before. I was like, I'm going to do it. And she was my favorite young adult author when I was writing young adult, because of the Scorpio Races and also because of the Raven Boys. I just loved the first book so much. And her writing is just as lovely in All the Crooked Saints. Unfortunately, though, I DNF'd it at 10%. It's kind of supposed to be like a tall tale type thing, but it's too like realism feeling for me. It's not like a fantasy, and I really like her fantasy. I think she does really immersive fantasy, and she doesn't get caught up in things that I don't care about, you know? It's just like beautifully written, and a lot of times there's cozy elements. It's usually really funny. And I think that her prose is pretty much the same here, but I'm not actually interested in the subject matter, unfortunately. So what else? I like her writing in one. I feel like the only thing that's good about this that I was like, oh yeah, that has promise, was her writing. But there was even times when she would be like, he's as handsome as a cigarette. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, cigarettes are deadly and not handsome at all. So I just don't, sometimes it's a little too purple prosy for me in this case. And I think she was really leaning into it because, I mean, there was still a really strong setting, like, which is really common in her works, and there was really strong characters, I would say. But it didn't have the same magic to me as a lot of her other books had for me, but it also felt kind of young. Like, she just feels young to me when I'm reading this, and that's probably because I'm not a young adult anymore. I'm 31. I think I'm 31. So it probably just doesn't appeal to me anymore, but I think she's still a good writer for young adults because she writes young. She writes with a young person's perspective. It's very fiery and passionate, but also just the title, All the Crooked Saints, kind of isn't it for me. Like, saints aren't crooked. So it just feels a little bit too contrary. I feel like contrary is the perfect word for Maggie Stiefvater. I really picture her like Puck Connolly in the Scorpio Races. I feel like that's who Maggie Stiefvater really is Puck, you know? So yeah, I didn't think it was really for me. So, but it's set in, dang, I accidentally put it down. Okay. It's set in 1962 in the San Luis Valley, and it's about some teenagers who are saints. And so I know that there's supposed to be some like miraculous element or miraculous powers that happen later in the story, but I just didn't care. It was like about a radio station that they were sending out of their van, and you know, it was just like, I don't care. So anyways, that was unfortunately that, and was very sad. So I DNF'd that one. Okay, next I finished Attack on Titan volume 15. This was a great volume, very philosophical, amazing moments happened in it that were just like, wow, like it makes you feel powerful reading it, you know, those kind of like victory moments, like moments in like Atlas Shrugged and The Hunger Games, where you're just like, you're so invested. There were some moments like that in this one. It was a really, really good volume, and it didn't have as much of the torture that volume 4 had. There was still some torture. Because it's a horror manga. So, of course, there's going to be some stuff that turns your stomach. But 14 was, like, a little too much for me. This one was, like, perfect. Even though it's still not about the subject matter I care the most about, I'm still interested because I just feel like there's so much philosophy about leadership and war and all kinds of stuff in here. Like, there's a revolution that happens, that's happening, and it's like, yeah, it's ever since I read the history of the Russian Revolution, I realized after talking with Tony, and Tony from Tony Paul Cross, by the way, started a new channel here on YouTube. He's the one who was co-hosting the history of the Russian read along with me. Definitely go subscribe to him. He reads a lot of history, and he was saying pretty much, that the revolution will win once it has control of the army, and that is indeed when the revolution took over Russia, is when they got control of the army. And it just was very timely for me because of what just happened in South Korea, which was the president Yoon Suk-yeol, he declared martial law in South Korea, which is not something that a president can really do in a democracy in the sense that he did it. There is no law in America where the president could declare martial law and repeal like freedom of speech and to do countrywide I forget what's the term, when everybody has to go inside at a certain time of the night and you're not allowed to go outside, curfews, all kinds of like really repressive stuff. Like Congress wasn't allowed to meet under martial law. And so there was like video of the congressmen in South Korea jumping over walls to get to the Congress and vote anyways. And they ended up unanimously voting martial law down. And so since President Yoon Suk-yeol did not have the power of the military behind him, I mean, at first the military was obeying him, and that's what was really concerning to me, was the military was obeying him and they were trying to prevent the congressman from getting inside. But you could tell that they weren't trying really hard. Like, nobody was killed. This wasn't like a rebellion in that sense. There was tons of protesting. There's like this famous video of a woman trying to grab a gun from one of the military men, and he didn't shoot her. He didn't do anything to her. He was just like, no, give me back the gun, give me back the gun. And so nobody was hurt in that sense, and that was incredible to me. And I was just like, praise God. And then Yoon Suk-yeol eventually, he said, okay, finally I repeal martial law. And so it was really a relief to me that South Korea does have a strong democracy now, and they were able to overcome that. It's scary to me that they have a rule of law like that. They can just follow like that. And if he had control of the military, it would have been enforced, but thankfully he didn't. But South Korea is not a very big country, so you could enforce it if you had control of the military. But anyway, that was something that was discussed in here a little bit. If you have control of the military, you can take over. You can cause a revolution. So it was very timely reading this for me. Was there anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, and it's still also exploring the same idea of the last volume of, are you really the hero if you're torturing and killing people to accomplish what you think is right? Are you still the hero? Are you still the good guy, or have you become the bad guy? So I'm very interested to see the arcs that this will take us on, and I'm enjoying it so much. I can't wait for volume 16. Woo! So I'm going to order that ASAP. Okay, Show Them No Mercy. I finally finished Show Them No Mercy. I don't know how many months this took me, like 4 months to read. I really don't know how long it was, but this was a book kind of with several theologians exploring the Canaanite Revolution. I'm gonna have to get that. So basically, that's a concern that I had reading Joshua. Why are they killing all the men, women, and children just for the land. That was concerning to me. And indeed, one of the theologians in Show Them No Mercy, so it's 4 views on God and the Canaanite genocide. So one of the theologians in here was like, this was just Moses basically wanting this, and they obeyed him at first. And so he was basically saying that's not really what God wanted. We know who God is because of Jesus. Jesus is the real revelation of God. And this is a discrepancy because it's from Moses. However, all 3 of the other ones strongly disagreed with him about that. And honestly, they all seemed like we have the same perspective, but there's like differences on like, to me, it seemed like minor things. It was really interesting to read the first perspective because it was so different. And it was like, oh, I'm kind of relieved that there are some Christians saying this, even though it was like uncomfortable to read as well. But the other 3 perspectives were all really similar. And the only thing they differed in was like their definitions of holy war, basically. Which, yeah, it wasn't as interesting as I was hoping. But it did kind of answer my questions. So I kind of wrote up a response on this because I was a little uncomfortable trying to like wing out my words on a video without writing it down first. So I'm just going to read it to you, kind of what I thought as I was reading it. God is our creator, and he has a right to demand our obedience, but he gives us free will and time to choose obedience before he finally enforces obedience through punishment. In the case of the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, he gave them centuries to turn to him, showing them miracles through his chosen people. And some, like Rahab, chose to follow him and were rewarded. She was even in the genealogy of Christ, but the rest had to be killed because he knew exactly what would happen if they weren't killed. They would lead the chosen people, Israel, into idolatry and child sacrifice, impairing their witness to the rest of the world and therefore endangering all of humanity. And when the Israelites themselves chose to hinder their witness by following false gods, they were treated with the same brutality by invaders at God's instigation. Like if you've read Lamentations, the Israelites' babies were not spared, in God's judgment. They were killed too. So it wasn't just the Canaanites that suffered this kind of punishment. The fact is we will all die. And if we don't obey God, the wages of sin are death. So yeah, it's just how and when your death comes. So yeah, I think Christ's judgment against evil as well in Revelation is just as gory and bloody and horrible, no less fierce than here in Judges and Deuteronomy and stuff. So even though it's disturbing, I think when you see it in the perspective of the whole rest of the Bible, I guess it's not really that different. It's still hard. It's hard to think about. But anyways, that I feel like there was more too that I was going to say, but I forget what it was. So anyways, that's kind of what it came down to. I don't think I would recommend reading this book to anybody because even though I came away with answers, it was a slog. It took me a really long time to read, and I felt like it was too in the weeds. It was like, okay, sometimes I've been to Bible studies where the people talking are so over my head when they're doing this Bible discussion that I'm like, am I here? I forget. Pinch me. Am I here? I don't know. I certainly am not talking, so that can be a bit overwhelming. And I would say that is the experience of reading this book. To me, it was just like very overwhelming. But I came away with more peace in my heart about it. I do not think that you can separate this out from God's commands and say, oh, it was just Moses. So yeah, but that's my opinion. Anyways, moving on. Okay, the next thing, is News of a Kidnapping by Gabriel García Márquez, which honestly, this was a DNF really early on, and it had nothing to do with the book itself, which sounds really interesting. It had everything to do with the audio narrator. I've been getting a lot of nonfiction to listen to, and if I can, I read along with it. But I really just am doing a lot of coloring, and it's nice to have an audiobook to listen to that's nonfiction. Because with fiction, I don't know. I enjoy reading things with my eyes best if I can, obviously, or immersion reading it. But it's nice to just sink into a nonfiction and color for a while, if that's all I have the brain space to do. I'm really realizing lately more and more, I don't know if it's the older I get or what, but I really need a lot of downtime for my brain, and sometimes even basic tasks. Basic reading, like a graphic novel, is too much for my brain. Just reading, period, is too much, because I'm too anxious, too stressed, and then I can't sleep. So yeah, leaning into the coloring and audiobooking a lot. Unfortunately, I could not listen to this because the audio narrator narrated every sentence exactly the same. It would be like if I started every sentence exactly like this, got to the middle, and ended it like this every single time. And it just got old really fast. He's not a good narrator. He's a really bad narrator. Don't recommend. 10 out of 10 do not recommend. I probably won't get to this because I was only going to listen to it. It's true crime. I don't really sit down and read true crime with my eyes. If I can't follow it on audiobook, or I don't like the audiobook, that's the end of my true crime listening. So yeah, lots of DNFs, and that's it. But I'm really close to finishing some other things. I can't wait to talk to you about them. Like, next weekend, I'll probably be blowing my top about them. And that is Compassion and Conviction. I just got this for Christmas. I'm gonna haul it eventually. I need to order some books first with my gift cards, and then I'll do a book haul. I can't wait to talk about this. I'm really enjoying it so much. And then the other thing is, of course, Patriot, a memoir by Alexei Navalny. I could have finished it by now, but I know that it is going to be so incredibly upsetting at the end. Because basically the first half is him writing his book, and he's writing this book while he's in prison in Russia. He's a Russian journalist. And then at a certain point in the book, it switches to prison memoir, because he's keeping a diary when he's not writing, and it switches to like sharing his Instagram posts that he gets out through his lawyers. And things just get sadder and more heartrending the longer it goes. They put him in solitary confinement. He has a really upbeat attitude. But me reading about the conditions that he's in, and he's like, I like my job. This is just the hardest thing about my job. You know, I've made my peace a long time ago with the fact that I will probably be killed by Putin because of my job. But I love my job. I know that I'm doing the right thing. And he's made his peace with it. So he has a great attitude. Like, wow. He says in the book, anybody could do what I did, and somebody else will after I'm gone. And I'm just like, I don't know, dude. If everybody could do what you're doing, like, he went on this intense hunger strike to protest the treatment of prisoners in Russia. And it's like, this guy, he's so cool. He's a rock star. This is gonna be my favorite book of 2025. I have 5% left. I haven't finished it yet because I know I'm gonna cry so much, and I'm not looking forward to that. I don't want it to be over, because I don't want him to be gone. I don't want him to be dead. I'm really actually upset that he's gone. So yeah, it's like losing a favorite writer that you just met, except he's dead. So it really sucks, but it's okay. He believed, I think he might have been a Christian. He doesn't come out and say that, but he does say that becoming a father made him realize he was wrong about being an atheist. He was like, I guess I'm not an atheist. So I'm hoping that he is in heaven and I will get to talk to him there. Yeah. Wow. It's so moving. I'm like laughing all the time. I'm crying. I'm like talking to anybody who listen or who won't listen. I'm just talking to the wall over there. It's that good. It's so good. Okay. I've got Human Acts out to compare. The English version is really different from the Korean version. Let me just say that. Reading it in Korean, I'm like, I don't even recognize this. It's so different. but it won the Nobel Prize. The English translation one did. So, I don't know. Oh my gosh! The Alexei Navalny Patriot audiobook just came in, but I don't actually need it. But I kind of want it just for the last 5%. I found out not that long ago that every checkout on Libby costs the library money, and I felt really bad for checking things out and then not reading them. So I'm not going to check it out unless I'm positive I'm going to read it. I am positive I'm going to read it. I just don't know if tonight is the night I want to dissolve into tears and then have trouble sleeping. Anyways, what else? Okay. What else do I have out? I just checked out The Pushcart War by Jean Merrill. Finally, Faith gave this to me for my birthday in March, and I still haven't read it. So I'm really excited to finally read this. I've got The Life and Death of the American Worker out by Alice Driver, which is a work of journalism that is kind of skewering Tyson Foods. Basically, she interviewed a lot of workers who were dying from COVID in the Tyson Foods factories. And she interviews them about some of the abuses kind of behind the scenes there. It's really, really pointed. And I was like questioning, is this actually like all accurate? Because it seems like it's just a takedown kind of, it's like muckraking. That's what it feels like, is a muckraker type book. But the biggest story that was really concerning in this book, I just double checked it and it was confirmed by other outlets. So it sounds like she's telling the truth. So yeah, it's pretty sad and disturbing and not really fun to listen to. So I'm only 40% through it. I don't know if I'll finish it or not. We'll see. I say this as I read the memoir of a man killed in a Russian prison by Putin. But that one was funny. Like, honestly, Patriot is really funny. He was a really, really funny writer. He was a really good writer. Anyways, okay. I'm also still reading David Copperfield. I'm loaning my audiobook to Tiffany right now. And once she finishes it, she's at 87%. Then I will pick this back up and read it. Because I've just been reading Oathbringer instead for now. And Compassion and Conviction. And Patriot. So yeah, that's mainly it. Oh, and I also picked up An Honest Woman by Charlotte Shane, which is a memoir of a sex worker. And let me just tell you, it's interesting so far. This is my TBR, by the way. Did I say this is my TBR section? This is interesting. She is like actually admitting out loud that the reason she got into sex work is because she loves affirmation of her value from other people. And I was like, you can get that in other places with less PTSD and trauma. You don't have to be a sex worker to get validation as a person. It's really sad. And she's like, yeah, I grew up in this family that we didn't like physically touch each other very much. And so when I was a teenager and all the boys wanted to touch me, I loved it. I just fell in love with them. And I was like, that is so sad. That is like uber sad. So yeah, I started listening to this, and I probably will keep listening to it, but it is really sad because it's like, this is a girl who did not get what she needed growing up, and that's why she's in sex work. And she thinks that men are the same too, which is kind of sad because I'm sure the men are just playing her, so that's really sad. But anyways, lots of sad, heavy things that I am reading lately. Fun. But I am also reading Harry Potter 6, very slowly. I've been reading that, and Oathbringer, my nap book lately, when I've been taking a nap, which is a lot lately because I've been sick and flaring. I've been listening to The Two Towers, and I'm in the section with all the Ents, and they're going to Isengard, and then a certain someone is resurrected, and Gimli and Aragorn and Legolas are meeting him in the forest. So that's really fun. I've been drawing goblins. That's my next book that I'm working on for drawing. And okay, moving on to the other TBR things that aren't checked out yet. where did it go? There it is. For We Love Jenny. I should start with White Nights is Tiffany's Patreon book club book in January. Also, Crystal from Fiber Artsy is starting an Asian book club in her K-pop Discord server. So hopefully I will be able to join for those. I would love to read more Asian literature from all over. And Faith, from Faith in Books, we're finally going to jump into The Question of Canon again, which was a book that was on my We Love Jenny TBR last year, because Jenny and I were going to buddy read it, because it's about how scripture was canonized, like the history of that and why it's valid. So Faith and I started it last year for We Love Jenny, and then we didn't finish it, but she's going to make it her theology book club pick so that we can commit to it. So now that I'm almost finished with Compassion and Conviction, I'm definitely planning on that. I seem to take a long time though to finish Christian nonfiction, so it'll just take me some time, and that's okay. Okay, We Love Jenny picks. Kafka's Letters to Milena. I forget who recommended this. It was somebody on my announcement for We Love Jenny. They said that was the letters from Kafka that Jenny was reading and loving. And I remember her recommending them to me and being like, you should definitely read these, Chrissy. It's like between him and a Catholic woman, I think. And she said, Chrissy, you're going to love them. So yeah, I want to check those out. Also Purgatory, another person said they're going to be reading the Divine Comedy. And I always remember, I've read Hell a couple times. Hell's interesting. That's the one we study in school, of course. But Emma, I remember the Bookish Princess once was like, don't just read Hell. Don't stop there. Keep going. You know, it gets better, like, if you're a Christian. So I definitely want to continue and read Purgatory. We'll see if I have the mental bandwidth in January. Hopefully I will. Rouge by Mona Awad, finally. I'm finally going to get to it, hopefully, because I really loved Bunny. Bunny was so good. That was another one I read because of Jenny. And then Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh, that's been on my TBR for a couple months now. But for We Love Jenny, hopefully I'll get to at least one of those. I've also been watching a K-drama that Jenny recommended. It's a Studio Dragon K-drama, which I love Studio Dragon. They did one of my other very favorite K-dramas, which was It's Okay Not to Be Okay on Netflix. And so this drama is called The Island, or is it just Island? It's on Prime, and it like really hooks you in. It's really compelling, and instantly from the start, I was just like, wow, this is really good, and I'm so glad she recommended it to me. I thought it was going to be too scary. I thought it would be too horror-y for me. And it is for Tiffany, because she looked at it and she was like, no way, I'm not reading this one. I am not watching this one. But for me, it hasn't been too scary. But it is scary and intense. But it's not too much for me. Maybe my tolerance has gone up a little bit. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's about a woman who finds herself pursued by lust demons who want to kill her. Basically, they want to take over her body and kill her. And they just keep coming for her. And she is pretty smart and resourceful, and she knows some like martial arts, and she kicks them in the face and runs away sometimes. And then other times she gets saved by this mysterious man who she ends up hiring as her bodyguard. She's like, you can fight these things better than me, so I really need your help. And we know that he knows more about her past and why all of these lust demons are chasing her down. But the scary thing is, lust demon blood or whatever was introduced into his body, we know. Like in the first episode, you learn this. And so that means he has some lust demon elements, and that's why he's able to fight them. And so I'm kind of worried for her hooking up with him, because if all the lust demons want to kill her, that means probably a part of him wants to kill her too. So I'm a little bit scared for her. So yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. There's a lot of mythology kind of elements, and even though there are really intense moments, it's also like really, really more compelling than it is scary, I would say. It's almost more thrillery than horror-y. But there's mythological elements that are really magical, I would say. There's some really magical. I think the special effects are really well done, and some of it's like genuinely funny. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but it's kind of funny. But in a good way. It's not like in a cheesy way. It's like that's great. Like, the opening scene is actually pretty funny, even though it's like straight horror. But I don't know. There's just a different. It's not like slasher horror where it's just gross. It's not like gross gore, that kind of horror. But anyways, yeah, I'm really enjoying Island, and I'm going to continue watching that in January for We Love Jenny. And since I have Prime so that I can watch Island, Tiffany and I are going to watch Gumiho 1938, which is the follow-up K-drama to my favorite K-drama, Tale of the Nine-Tailed, Jenny's favorite drama, Tale of the Nine-Tailed, which we both watched and adored. And she watched this season. This is season 2 of that show. Jenny watched it. We were all supposed to watch it with Tiffany. The three of us were supposed to watch the first episode together. And then it debuted on Prime. And I was like, I don't have Prime, so I can't watch it. At the time, I think I had Netflix. So now, though, I have Prime. And so Tiffany and I are going to watch. And Tiffany doesn't mind screen sharing for me. So that's really nice. Thank you, Tiffany. In her Discord. So yeah, we're going to watch Gumiho 1938 in honor of Jenny. So if you would like to watch a K-drama in honor of Jenny, I really wanted to kind of lean into the TV show theme for We Love Jenny this year. Like things that were inspired from web novels or webtoons that you can go read, or just things that she loved, K-dramas, shows that she loved, because she was a big TV watcher. Like, she would watch all the new things that came out. She was on trend. I don't know how she managed to do that and read like classic literature and work and, you know, do a YouTube channel. Like, I just don't know how she did all that, but she did it. So I wanted to add that element into Jenny's We Love Jenny readathon. So you could do that. You could read something that maybe she didn't like. Tiffany is leaning into that theme this year. She's going to read something that she knows Jenny did not like. I forget what it is at the moment, but you could do that. You could be like, oh, this was a hate read for Jenny, but I want to try it, because some of us, we just love Jenny, even if our tastes are different from Jenny's. And if there's something that she hates, maybe it's something we love. That's possible too. So yeah. But do with the prompts what you will. We don't really have prompts this year. It's just read something, watch something, listen to something that reminds you of Jenny. Think of Jenny, pray for Pam. And yeah, that's mainly We Love Jenny this year. And we just want to get together and remember her. I want to remember her. I don't want to forget her. Not that I'm going to forget her, but remembering her together feels good. So, all right, that's that. I have a very short TBR, even though it took me like 20 minutes to tell it all to you. I don't really have a really long TBR. So that's the plan for January. That's my December reading wrap up. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of all this. And I hope I'll see you on our live streams. Bye.